Debuting in Medarot S as a brand new boss type in the story of Arase, Hisaki, and Cross Messiah, this Witch Hunter type trudges through Dark Forest and guns down anyone that he deems a heretic. It is WNT00, Amira Magus, with a kit of Replay Shot, Drain Shot, Unsuccess M, Biped Legs, and the leg ability of Forest Up, which is a brand new leg ability that buffs all leg stats, minus armor and heavy limit, passively restores HP over time, and will also boost the user's Metaforce gauge as long as the user is on forest terrain exclusively. Now, we actually got a teaser to Amira Magus just a little bit sooner than expected here for the 4.5-year anniversary at time of recording as an enemy NPC. So we kind of already had a little bit of an idea of what he brought to the table, but not necessarily the exact specifics and the details, because he is bringing a brand new skill and a brand new leg ability to the game. That is no longer the case because now we have the full breakdown, and let me just say this Witch Hunter type is actually quite synergetic, and especially when it comes to the realm of overall survival and outliving the opponent. Replay Shot on the head part in the first instance of this that is not on a collaboration model, the first of which being Pleasure Lust from the recently closed Bravern collaboration. Basically, upon attacking the target successfully, you will inflict an Encore status on that target. For the next 3 turns or until attacked, the enemy in question will be forced to replay the last action completed before attacked that certain number of times. This also means that if the action was something that cannot be repeated more than once, such as say if the part is broken with that attack, or if it's simply something like Metaforce that was unleashed, the action will automatically fail and basically buy you 3 free turns that you can use to buy yourself some time and take a chance to breathe from that particular enemy in question, because it lasts for 3 turns, like I said, or until attacked, very similarly to how Confusion works. Drain Shot on the right arm is a shooting-based skill that, upon consuming just a very small amount of charge, will actually allow you to steal an amount of HP percentage and relative to the amount of damage you deal to the opponent with that shot. And looking at that solid base damage at just almost 2200, Amira Magus has a pretty solid punch to that. So all he really needs to do is just consume a small amount of energy, and he can keep himself alive more or less pretty efficiently by himself, unless the enemy decides to really dogpile and break him down sooner than later. Unsuccess M and one of the new skills he's bringing to the table is a gunpowder based skill, so it falls in the same vein as missile and hyper missile and so on, but it also has the negative ailment of unsuccess, which we actually have not seen for a pretty hot minute. We've seen it a handful of times as like a secondary ailment on other attacks, but not necessarily as something on its own. Unsuccess M exclusively is a gunpowder-based missile skill that, upon attacking the target, will also reduce their success stat by 50%. That staggering amount will guarantee that if the enemy was already having a really hard time trying to land hits before, well, guess what? You basically made them blind as a bat, so they are almost never going to touch you as long as your evade stays above a certain point and their success stays below a certain point. And given we have a lot of really powerful skills such as, say, Hyper Beam, or Ghost, or Ghost Shot, or anything else of the like, which trade success, heat, and cool for higher power, one blow of unsuccess to blind will guarantee you probably will not ever get touched as long as that ailment stays in effect. Biped Legs means that even without the Forest Up leg ability, Amira Magus will have a pretty solid terrain compatibility across all terrains as a whole. When it comes to being able to match on certain terrains, he really won't have too much of a difficulty aside from only a very small handful. Now, with the leg ability of Forest Up though, this basically gives him a new mastery, or at least an advanced mastery, gives him an extra edge against a terrain that every biped will already be really good on, and that is forest terrain. While everyone else will already only get that 20% boost to all leg stats based on terrain matching, Amira Magus takes it to a whole new level, and he gets an extra 30 to 32% on top of that. just because he's using this specific leg ability on forest terrains. Now, this will not apply to any other terrain aside from forest, but on any other, but when fighting on forest terrain, it's probably going to be him that will outrun most anyone there very, very easily. When it comes to leg stats, he's actually pretty remarkably solid as well before any other bonuses come into effect. With a base mobility of 913, he's already going to be cooking with some very solid base speed. An evade of 1210 is nice, as it means he can stay on his own and stay on his feet pretty easily as long as he's not hit with a no dodge penalty. A melee resist of 1410 and a shoot resist of almost 2100 are both rather impressive for his kit though, as this means he can most certainly hold his own up close or at range, despite being a long range model, very, very easily. And again, this is also not including the 20% he'll get from his terrain compatibility, or the additional 30% he'll get on top of that just from forest up on the specific terrain mentioned. Plus, a heavy support of 2 means it's going to be a pretty solid leg as well when it comes to using a lot of higher artillery parts. When it comes to his other stats though, in terms of armor, he's actually pretty chunky as well, with a head armor at about 5400, right arm at 4800, left arm at 4200, and legs at just shy of 5000. He's a very healthy fellow when it comes to the HP and the damage reduction departments. So he's going to be a very solid model that'll specialize in, especially in its overall survival between drain shots, unsuccess, and even replay shot if timed correctly. All this being said though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate Amira Magus a pretty solid 7.5 out of 10 and a fairly well-rounded model. Given that even though Forest Up is a pretty picky leg ability, and in order to get that extra 30% bonus, it needs you to be on forest terrain exclusively. It's not something that's going to completely shoot him in the foot if he's fighting on something else. It's just an added bonus more than anything else. Plus, between replay shot, drain shot, and unsuccess M, like I said, he is relatively solid in terms of overall survivability. So as long as he's not being dogpiled on by more than one enemy at once, he can usually hold his own fairly well between drain shot and unsuccess M to guarantee that he can at least try to dodge and graze the best he can with his already relatively solid evade skill, and drain shot to keep himself particularly healthy if a hit does end up getting through. As a mixed parts score, I do have to rate him equally at a 7.5 out of 10 as well for these same reasons. Replay shot, you probably may or may not see a lot of good use out of because it is kind of picky and requires some very immense timing. But with drain shot and unsuccess M, you can use them fairly solidly with no real charge or requirement out of the box. Just as a fair reminder, drain shot does require you to have a very small amount of charge in your gauge to use in order for you to actually absorb the HP from the enemy that you deal damage to. Just a fair warning. The legs are probably going to be the really big ticket item on him though, with those very impressive stats, very well-rounded bonuses already as a biped, and when you're fighting on forest terrain, this is definitely going to be a leg of choice that will probably allow you to stand just a toe above others in a game where speed is key.